Joining me today on the Capital Show, David Atherton. He's a journalist and broadcaster. I have heard about you a long time, David. Now it's my chance to meet you through
Nice to
Zoom
meet you too.
and hope to meet you in person here in DC. You're a libertarian. My first question is about President Trump criticized America's war in the Middle East. Can you say that President Trump is a libertarian?
That's a very difficult question. I, I I think the way that libertarianism is in Britain, for example, people will say I'm libertarian on this issue, which is a compliment. And I think libertarianism in America is probably less thought to
Mhm.
be good. But to answer your question, not wanting to go to war could be seen to be libertarian. Certainly, most of the wars that the West has been involved in, including Britain, have been an absolute disaster by and large. Now,
Mhm.
Iraq was disgusting. We should, George Bush and Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister, lied about weapons of mass destruction. And wherever Tony Blair goes in this country, 30 years, 20 years later, it's always brought up, it's always thrown back in his face. And the killing and and let's be honest, in my opinion, the murder of the Iraqis in Iraq was absolutely appalling, and they should forever hold their heads in shame.
Mhm.
I think why. So to answer your question, I think Trump is being libertarian oriented. Yes, I think he's obviously the outsider in Washington. He's had a real job all his life, been a businessman and making money and doing property deals and things like that. No,
Mhm.
he's not used to he obviously wasn't used to the day-to-day nihilism of American politics. And
Mhm.
it seems to be very, very simple, good business not to be involved in wars. But that, of course, that upsets the military-industrial complex over in America, and therefore they couldn't wait to get rid of him, and
Yeah.
undermine him. And let's face it, Ukraine has been a perfect example. Looks like Israel Palestinian war might go the same way.
Yeah. My other question is, how does libertarianism approach the question of illegal immigration into the United States?
Right. Okay. Well. Okay. Let's look at the work of libertarian economist Milton Friedman.
Mm.
He said you got two choices. You either have a welfare state or you have open immigration. Like, for example, America, when people came from all around the world to America in the 19th and most of the 20th century, Ellis
Mm.
Island, New York, places like that, there was no welfare. It was a battle of a battle of the fittest. And if you didn't find work, you couldn't provide for your family, you perished. The problem that the West has and America has is welfare. You can't have both. You either have an open immigration policy and no welfare, or you have a welfare system and no immigration. There
Mm.
is very little room for compromise in the meantime. So obviously, apart from highly skilled work permits, like for example, Indians who work in the IT industry and people like that, obviously, I think they paid about $100,000 a year plus,
Mm.
and so therefore, they will always be net contributors to the country. But to answer your question, also, by the way, classical liberal and libertarian circles, immigration has been discussed in great issue because theoretically we're meant to be for open borders. I'm not. They did some research in University of Amsterdam, did some research into the cost of immigration, and they found that Asians and Europeans were net contributors when it comes. When I say net contributors, is I mean you go to a country, you use the hospitals, you use the roads, you use the schools, but of course you pay your taxes. And Asians and Europeans are net contributors to the Dutch economy, while people who came from developing and third world countries were vastly takers. For example, Somalis in the Netherlands throughout the lifetime costs the state in negative taxes and welfare payments in American dollars, it's 600,000 American dollars throughout their lifetime. They're there. Lot of the people come from places like Somalia, Ethiopia, to a certain extent the Middle East, North Africa. Their wives don't work.
Yeah.
And they're bringing up often large families that are dependent upon a lot of social services.
You have a great knowledge on the Middle East, especially the Gulf states. I'm gonna get to inside the main events right now, the war in Gaza. Uh,
Sure.
Prince Mohammed bin Salman met with Anthony Blinken, and there is a Saudi position to stop the war. And now President Biden is afraid to this war will extend and reach Lebanon, or it will be like a global war. What do you think about the situation, and can you give us your advice here?
Sure. Advice. Interesting. Right. For example, I feel sorry for the Gazan civilians. I feel sorry for all the innocent people who've been killed and maimed in Gaza. My genuine sympathies. I have no sympathy for Hamas and its supporters. They deserve every single bullet fired at them, every single bomb dropped on them. And I'm so glad to see so many of the senior Hamas people have been killed. And frankly, I hope Israel doesn't stop yet. That was the most. We've had a debate in Britain. What was worse, Hamas or the Nazis? And people actually think Hamas are worse because the Nazis try to cover up their crimes and their murders, but Hamas are proud of them. So my feeling is Israel should really make sure that they take out anybody who's involved in Hamas, and obviously they've got to return it back to the Gazans at some time. But in the meantime, Israel has every right to defend itself and every right to take as reasonable steps as possible. No, saying that though, I saw today.
What are the risks of this war in the area, in the neighborhood of Israel? What are the risks on Jordan, on Lebanon?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, of course, Iran. Iran Shias have been stirring it all up. Of course, I think they've also sponsored the war in the Yemen. The Houthis, I think you call them, don't they? They've been supplying them with arms and ammunitions. And I think they've incited them to intercept ships and attack them in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. This is an absolute disaster for the West because most of our oil goes through the Red Sea, right from the Suez Canal over to here, and also over to America as well. This potentially could get very, very serious, and Iran is all behind this. And I really think, personally speaking, that Iran really needs to be brought to account here. And frankly, we need regime, if we can, we need regime change in Iran and return it maybe to something like the Shah of Iran's the House of Peacock in 1979. It's one of the things that a lot of people put on social media. Iran and Afghanistan before the extremist Muslims took over. Women went to university wearing a miniskirt. That was a shocking thing to do. So a broader conflict could spill over, and it could end up being quite nasty from what I can see.
Let's talk about the humanitarian situation. The UAE launched the Gallant Night 3 relief campaign, and the UAE's charitable efforts reached more than 14,000 Gazan citizens. Also, Saudi Arabia did the same thing. They built the largest bridge to help the people in Gaza.
Sure.
How do you see these initiatives?
Well, they're all very noble, but of course, Hamas officials and aided and abetted by the United Nations are having their food convoys and aid intercepted by Hamas. I read today the food and aid that was given to the people of Gaza was requisitioned by Hamas. They're actually selling it to the Gaza people. This is the reason why Hamas should disappear from the face of the earth. I forgot the name of the Hamas leader that said it. He said, "We're not here to look after Gazans and Palestinians. The UN can do that." And even when the UN and other countries do get involved in supplying aid, they requisition it, they take it away, and they use it as a means of bashing their population over the head.
How do you reply on the story that Iran admits lately that the Tawafan al-Aqsa, it was organized by them. It was to revenge. It was made to revenge for Qasem Soleimani killings, and I think that everybody agrees that Iran is using Hamas as a weapon,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Hamas is a part of Muslim Brotherhood. Can you elaborate more?
sure. I don't know entirely all about this, um, but what I can work out the backstory to Hamas invading Israel was it looked like Saudi Arabia was going to sign the Abraham Accords, whereby Israel and Saudi Arabia will start having normal diplomatic relations, and they're basically going to be burying the hatchet. Apparently, if you go to Abu Dhabi and United Arab Emirates, you can see Jewish people with kippahs on their head sitting having lunch in a Dubai restaurant. No, it's fantastic. I think what's happened is that when all the Hamas officials started stealing all the foreign aid, I believe three of them are multi-billionaires. They live in their five-star hotels in Qatar. I think they've moved now to Algeria from what I've read. So, and all they're motivated by is hatred of Jews, and Iran is also just purely motivated by hatred of Jews. So, they're Islamic fundamentalists, who shouldn't be allowed to run a bath, let alone a country. So yeah, Iran is the baddie here. Iran is the devil, and it needs to be sorted out one
In
way or
your
another.
in your point of view, who gonna rule Gaza at the end? What is your vision or the scenario can be if this war ends soon?
Okay, I'm rather I'm big, I'm rather perturbed that Tony Blair, the unflushable turd as he's called in Britain, he looks like he might be trying to help resettle Palestinians, maybe in Europe, maybe in Africa. And
Mm,
to be honest, it is their land to us to a greater or lesser extent, and to expel them, it stinks of ethnic cleansing, and that is something I'm completely against.
mm,
Of course, many might want to move on from Gaza and move to different countries. But you know yourself, you come from Lebanon. You saw the result of the 1948-1967 wars, where the Palestinians settled in Lebanon,
mhm.
and you had the war 75 civil war between 75 and 90. And yours was sort of Lebanon then was a reasonably sort of Western-oriented, Western-looking country that was ruined by, frankly, Palestinians.
Mhm.
Who was them in your country? By the way, I don't really know Denmark allowed 321 Palestinians back in 1999 to settle in Denmark, and after 10 years, 64% of the Palestinians had a criminal record. They were either fined a lot of money or were sent to jail,
Mm.
and 34% of their children also had criminal offences. These I presume you've seen. I presume you've seen some of the videos of how the Hamas children are brainwashed into hating Israel, into hating Jews. I presume you've seen that. I presume you've seen those.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Um, you know, how can you live like that? When your whole life
Yeah,
is one
yeah.
long hate fest.
Yeah, of course. My final question is about the UAE. I mean, the exchange of prisoners between Russia and Ukraine. It was
Yeah,
by UAE. How do you
yeah.
see the powerful role, diplomatic role of this country on in a global view?
You talking about the UAE? Sorry, United Arab Emirates. Well, I've got to say, full marks to them actually. If there's one country I was settling, I would think about moving to would be the UAE.
Mhm.
I've supplied people to work over there. They said it's a great place, great fun, and you feel relatively free over there. Certainly, if you're a woman, you feel safe at night. But anyway, at a diplomatic level, UAE should be congratulated, for arranging that, and full kudos to them. Whether Russia and Ukraine will be going to the table in good faith, I don't know. But any exchange of prisoners has got to be welcome, and people going back home. In the Second World War, I think most of the Germans weren't allowed back from Russia until 1956.
Yeah, thank you, David Atherton. I was so glad to have this conversation with you. We we made a difficult analysis on difficult subjects. Thank you.
Sure.
Let us understand. It was so important to me to have you on my show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'll be happy to do it again.
Thank you.
Hey, Maria Malouf here. Please click to like and subscribe to Maria Malouf TV YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.